Alright, so this is Unit 5, Section 4, Factoring Polynomials, Part 1. That should let you know there's a Part 2 coming up. That's the next one. So, Part 1, let's start off with some easy ones. Factoring monomials. Mono meaning one. So we're only going to take out one thing, right, one term from each, or from the whole expression, then factor from there. Because notice it does say to factor completely. So, we will first factor out a monomial, one thing, and then we will factor from there. So the one thing that you look at when you're doing these is you want to find if there is a number and if there are variables or letters, right? So if I do one at a time when I do these. So first thing I want to know is what number can I divide out of all three numbers? I have 4, 2, and negative 72. Well, the best way to look at this is only look at the smallest number, so 2, and the only things that go into 2 are 1 and 2. Alright, so we skip 1 because that doesn't do anything. So then I only have 2. Can I divide the other two numbers by 2? Yes. Okay, so you only look at the smallest number and see if the other two numbers can be divided by that number. So the other two can be divided by 2, so I know I'm going to take out 2. And then from there, I want to look at all of the letters, the variables. So I'm going to look at one at a time. So x. Do I have an x in every single term? Yes. I have an x here, I have an x here, I have an x here. So because I have an x in all three, I can also take out an x, and you look at the smallest exponent. So my smallest exponent is, of course, the 1 with no exponent, which is a 1, really, right? So I'm just going to leave it as x. So you always take out the smallest exponent, as long as they're in all of the terms. Okay, now I look at y. Do I have a y in all three? Yes. Okay, the smallest, or the only exponent for y is 1, so that's what I'm going to take out. So my total, or not, we wouldn't say total, my entire factor that I'm going to factor out would be 2xy. That is a monomial because it's one term. Even though it's all together, it's one thing. So when I do this, my next step is to write my monomial out front. Whatever you factored goes out front. Then you do parentheses, and now I divide everything by my factor. So I divide 4 by 2. I get 2. Now, exponents. I have 3 x's. I took 1 away, so now I have 2 x's left. If I have 1y and I take away 1y, I have no y's. Okay? Next one, plus. Alright. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I don't have to write 1. I'm not going to. X, I have 2 x's. I took away 1. That leaves me with 1x. Y minus y, there's no y's left. Alright, so the last one, minus 72 divided by 2 is 36. Is that right? Okay. So I have 36. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And then I have 1x. I took away 1x. I have no x's. I have 1y. I took away 1y. I have no y's. That's it. Alright. Now, once you do that, now we can factor or attempt to factor this right here in parentheses. So, of course, like normal, what we've been doing, I multiply the first times the last. 2 times negative 36, negative 72. Okay, now I want two terms. Multiply to negative 72 adds to positive 1. That's my 1x, right? So, of course, I have my first x is 2, so I have 2x here. I have 2x here. Okay? So my two terms multiplies to negative 72 adds to positive 1. That would be 9 minus 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. 9 times negative 8 is negative 72. Okay, next thing I do is see if I can reduce these. I can't reduce 2 or 9, right? 2 and 9 can't divide by the same thing. I can reduce 2 and 8. So I divide these by 2. Alright. So first thing, my factor, my GCF, whatever you want to call it, that I took out in the first step goes here. So 2xy. I didn't change this one, so I'm going to leave that one alone. And then the last one, I have 2 divided by 2 is 1x. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. That is my entire answer right there. All of that. And that's it. Now again, the second part of all this, all this right here, that part shouldn't be too difficult because it's just review. It's things we've done before. You just might have to get the hang of it again if it's been a while. It's really the first part that we're doing or learning. And then we're just adding to it the second part that we already know. So if you practice this a few times, this shouldn't take too long. Not too bad. Alright, let's look at number 2. Notice I have fractions. Ooh, scary. Now it's okay. I put it in the notes on purpose. That way I can teach you how to do these. That way they are not scary. Okay? So if I look at these 3 numbers, again I'm going to do the 3 numbers. Okay? 3 numbers. What's my smallest number? Between 1/2, 19 halves, and 42. Smallest number is 1/2. Now, can I divide the other 2 numbers by 1/2? Of course I can. You can divide anything by a fraction because all you do is flip the fraction and multiply. That's really what you're doing, right? So if I'm dividing by fractions, okay, I know my GCF, my factor, is going to be 1/2. And if I look at real quick, I don't have any letters that are in all 3, so I don't have to worry about factoring out a letter or variable, whatever you want to call it, because there's not an x in all 3 of these. Okay, so I have my factor is 1/2. So if I have 1/2 divided by 1/2, I get 1. So that leaves me with x squared. Alright, 19 halves divided by 1/2. Let's go over here and I'll show my work because I like to do that. So if I have 19 halves divided by 1/2, when you divide by a fraction, the fraction on the bottom comes up and flips, and then you multiply. Okay? So now when I multiply, I can cancel these out because they're the same. And if you notice, that leaves me with 19 over 1, which is 19. So my next number is 19x. Okay, last one is 42 divided by 1/2. Okay, again, same thing. I'm going to go over here, show my work. 42 divided by 1/2. Fraction on the bottom comes up. And I multiply. So 42 times 2 is 84 over 1 is just 84. So 84. Alright, see, fractions are not that bad, and now I don't have any to worry about. Of course I did that on purpose. I wrote all these questions so they work out the way I want them to. That's the nice thing about them. Okay, now I'm going to factor this, or at least attempt to. Hopefully it works out. Spoiler alert, it does work out because I made this question up. Alright, so I do my first times last. 1 times 84 is 84. Okay. My first x is just 1x, so I just have 1x to each one. Because I know I'm going to have 2 parentheses, right? I'm going to go ahead and bring down my GCF, my factor, from the first step. And from here, I want 2 numbers that multiply to 84 and adds to 19. Okay. 12 and 7. 12 plus 7 is 19. 12 times 7 is 84. Now, if you notice, I have no way I can reduce any one of these. So, for this one, this is my answer. I'm done. See, fractions are not that bad as long as you know what to do. And now you do. Now it's not that bad. Alright, moving on to the next one. Factor by grouping. Notice now I have 4 things. This might look terrible, but I promise you it's not that bad. Okay, so factor the polynomial again completely. So some we might have a few more steps than others, it just depends. Alright, so by grouping, there are 2 ways you can group. I'll show you each way just so you know. The first way is actually the way that I don't prefer, but this is the way a lot of people teach it, which is fine, it still works. Okay, so the first way to group and factor is to group just the first two things and the second two things. First two terms, second two terms, okay? And then you look for a GCF, or a one thing to factor out of both. So kind of what we did before. So if I look at my first one, I know I'm going to factor out something, right? So I only have a 2 and a 1. I can't factor anything out there. But notice, I have 3 x's here, I have 2 x's here. So I can factor out an x, because there's an x in both things. And my lowest exponent is 2, so I'm going to take out 2 x's out of each one. Okay? Second one, I have a 6, I have a 3. I can divide both by 3, right? So I'm going to take out a 3. There's no x in both of these, so I can't take out that. That's fine. Alright, so I'm done with that. So here's what I do. My GCF goes out front, so I have x squared. Then I divide, right? My number didn't change, so I have 2. Okay, so now I have 3 x's. I took out 2. I have 1 left. Minus my number. Remember, I have a number here. It's 1. There's nothing there, but it's 1. And if I have 2 x's, right, I have 2 x's here. I took away 2 x's. I have no x's. They're all gone. So that's it on that one. Okay, next one. GCF goes out front. A positive 3 would be plus. If it was a negative, you'd put minus. Same thing. Alright, so look. 6 divided by 3 is 2. The x doesn't change. Minus 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now, here is a tidbit of news that might help you out later. If you notice, this is 2x plus 1, and this is 2x plus 1. That is because every time you do this, both parentheses must always be the same thing. Always. Always, always. If it's not, you did something wrong. Or you just can't factor it out. That is the only two answers. For my stuff, I'll just tell you you did it wrong because you can't do this on all of them. So those have to be the same. That'll help you kind of shortcut a little bit later. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Alright, so what do I do next? Okay, we're almost done. Not quite there, but almost there. So notice, I have 2 things outside the parentheses, and I have the same thing inside parentheses. So when I write this answer, when I write my answer, I'm going to write only 2 parentheses. One of them has the outside numbers, terms. One of them has the inside ones, okay? So, first thing, outside, x squared plus 3. Alright, that's half my answer. Second one, what's inside the parentheses? Because they're both the same, I only got to write it once. 2x minus 1. Now, one last check. Can I factor x squared plus 3? No. Anytime it's just x squared plus a number, you can't factor it, so don't even try. And look at the right side. 2x minus 1. Again, there's no x squared, and I can't factor out another number, so that's good. So that is my answer. And I will say most of the time, that will be your answer. Most of the time. Okay. So that's number 3. See, that wasn't very much. Not at all. Alright, let's look at number 4. I will show you the other way that you can factor and group. This is the way that I prefer to do it. So I'm not sure where I picked this up from, or I just made it up again. I just know how to do it. So here's how I do it. I actually group the first and third term, and then I group the second and fourth term. I don't know why, but most of the time that tends to make it easier. Not really sure why. So that's how I do it. So that's how I'm going to do it on this one. So I group the first, so I'm going to rewrite this, the first term and the third term. I put those in parentheses. I always put a plus here. Okay, then I do the second term and the fourth term. Okay, now I do the same thing. I'm looking for something to factor out of each parentheses, right? A GCF, if you want to call it that. So notice on this first one how my first term is negative. Anytime the first term is negative on anything that you're factoring ever, even if it's the one above that we did with 3, if it's this one with 2, if it's anything, anytime your first term is negative, your GCF will always be negative. It has to be. Okay, your first term has to be a positive. That's why if it's negative, you got to take out a negative. Now let's go from there. Notice I have a 2 and an 18. I can divide those by 2. I have an x to the third and an x. Okay, I have an x in both. My lowest exponent is 1, so I just leave it as 1, and I'm done with that one. Next one. I can divide both by 5, and that's it. There's no x in both, so that's it. Alright, so GCF goes out front, and then parentheses, and I divide. So negative and negative make it positive. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I have 3 x's. I take 1 away. That gives me 2. Okay, I have a positive and a negative. That'd be negative, right? 18 divided by 2 is 9. X minus x is no x. Sweet. Alright, now here's the shortcut I'm going to tell you about. Because I know both parentheses are the same, on my second one, all I do is take my GCF and write that out front. And because my parentheses have to be the same, I can go ahead and just write it the same as the other one. I don't have to go through all the steps anymore. It doesn't matter. Even if I did, it'd be the same thing because it has to be the same. Now, that's a good way to check your work if you're doing this, because if you go through the steps on the right one and it's not the same as the left one, then something's wrong and you messed up somewhere. So I'm pretty confident that I did this right. I'm going to keep going. So again, I have outside, outside, inside, inside. So I'm going to go ahead and write outside negative 2x plus 5. Inside is x squared minus 9. Now, see if I can keep going on anything. There's nothing I can divide out of that or factor out, right? So I'm done factoring that one, but notice this one. I have x squared minus 9. So I know we haven't really gone over it this year, but in case you forgot, if I have a squared minus a square, so 9 is a square, right? You can do 3 squared is 9, so 9 is a square. If I have x squared minus a square, you can factor that again. Okay, so I can factor this one on the right. Here's how I do it. And these are really about the only times you'll be able to keep going is if you have a square, x squared minus a square. Doesn't happen often, but it can. So if I do that, or if I have that, what I do is I take the square root of each thing. Okay, so square root of x squared is x. Square root of 9 is 3. And I'm going to have x and 3, right? Because I have 2 of them, I should have 2 x's. And I'm squaring 9, so I should have 2 3's. Now when I do this, I should have a plus and a minus. And that's how I factor that out. So if you have x squared minus, say, 4, it'd be x and 2. X squared minus 49 would be x and 7. X squared minus 81 is x and 9. And so on, right? So it only works if you have x squared minus a square. Your squares are what? 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 81, 100, 121, 144, 169, so on. 196, 225. You want to keep going, you can. My point is, when you see an x squared minus a square, then you got to keep going one more. But it's really easy. You just take the square root of the number and you split it up, plus and minus. That's it. And then of course you can't forget that because I didn't change this one, I still have it. So now I end up with 3 parentheses, which is totally fine. That's my full answer on this one, and I'm done. So that's how you factor by grouping. There's 2 ways. You can do first and second, third and fourth, or you can do first, third, second, fourth. Either way is fine. I prefer the second way. For whatever reason, again, it just seems easier all the times I've had to do this. But either way is fine. And that's it for today.